Hello, hello, we are back for the first section of our next read-along. Yes, I know, this is 2 read-alongs practically back-to-back. Last time I did this, it was a terrible idea and I needed to take a long break, but why not do it again? Why not do it again? We just finished A Night and Its Moon, but that nonsense is old news because now we have Lightlark, which you've probably heard of because I am probably the last reviewer getting to this, as per usual. In my defense, I did have to finish reading A Night and Its Moon. So as a result, I am behind everybody else once again. So first we will talk a little bit about the backstory of this book and what drew me to it, because the backstory is really the thing that even put it on my radar. We've got a lot to get through, and then hopefully we can at least read a chapter, maybe 2. I did kind of peek through and it looks like the chapters are short, so we are back to our classic very short chapters kind of style, which honestly makes my life so much easier. We have another weird author situation in the form of Alex Astor, the author of Lightlark. Very similarly to Piper CJ, she is a TikTok girly. I still haven't gotten on TikTok, even though everyone insists it is the way to market your books, and I'm like, if I get on there, people will just be like, you're old and ugly, why would we buy your book? That's what's gonna happen.
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
And yet I'm still considering it on the off chance that I could move a couple more copies of those things. Anyway, she's a TikTok girly. And the reason that this book got so much hype is because of TikTok. This is not actually her debut book, this is actually her debut young adult book, but she did write a middle grade book, maybe a series, I can't remember, at least one middle grade book before this, so she had previously been picked up by an agent, had a publisher, but that agent dropped her, which is part of her sob story. Her sob story and her rising star story both being a major influence in why this book came up the way it did. Not the only influence, but definitely a major influence. She wants to hit you hard, and yes, I did go watch most of her TikTok. You're welcome. She really wants to hit you hard with oh, I had an agent, but they dumped me, and it's that happens. That is fairly normal. That's a part of the traditional publishing world, is maybe your agent just doesn't work for you anymore, or maybe your writing is going in a direction that they didn't want to follow, or they think they're not the right agent for you, or you think that they're not the right agent for you. There's lots of reasons why authors and agents part ways, and yes, you can be quote-unquote dumped by your agent, but that happens. It does not make her story an especially sad or unusual one. Yes, the traditional publishing world is like Mad Max. It's insane. I don't know why I still consider trying to get into it sometimes. Anyway, so that's part of her sob story. The other part is oh, she's been trying to get published for so many years, 10 years, whatever, and finally she's gotten her heart book published, and it's great. You know who else has been trying to get their heart book published for 10 years? Basically everyone else. Again, that's not as much of a sob story as you think it is. Part of the reason I think it feels more like a sob story to her is because she grew up with money, which is another thing. She does not try to claim that she did not have the advantage of wealth on her side. The wealth does not seem to have been a contributing factor in Lightlark getting published. However, wealth provides you a really nice cushion that allows you to focus on your writing career and not have to worry about what you're doing for food or shelter when you could be writing. Julian from the future just popping in to add that while Alex's wealth might not have gotten her anything in the publishing industry, she didn't necessarily have any connections there. A YouTuber whose video I will post below suggested that she had help from her sister, who runs a sort of online magazine, I believe, and has connections to TikTok, which could have been even more of a draw for any publisher who wanted to publish Alex's book, because they knew they had an automatic in with TikTok. So it is a factor in her life and something that made it easier. So anyway, that first she's got that sob story of, oh my gosh, my publishing journey has been so hard, so difficult, when actually it's been fairly standard and quite frankly better than some people are having. She did have some books published. It's just that her agent or her publisher, can't remember which, but I think it was her agent, did drop her. She had to go try to find a new agent. And when that wasn't working out, she was back in the query trenches, nobody was going for it. The story she tells anyway is that she started posting TikToks about a new book idea that she was working on, her heart book, you know, the book that she was writing, you know, just for her. And she's throwing out all these tropes and buzzwords. Would you read a book if it had this? Would you read a book if it had that? Let me tell you about my book. And she was just like hitting it at this perfect like tempo and the perfect tropes that are really popular right now. And everybody on TikTok in the book talk world just went rabid. While obviously this reminds me of the similar situation with The Night and Its Moon, this also reminds me of Zenith. Remember how as we were finishing Zenith, we learned that rabid fans convinced publishers to push Zenith out before it was done, before it was ready? And I have a sneaky suspicion that something very similar happened with this book. And as such, she was discovered and she was picked up by an agent. People also like to talk about how like this book was optioned for movies. That's not that weird either. Many books, when they are published, are optioned. Most of them don't end up being turned into movies, but movie studios do like to grab up the opportunity to make something into a movie if it turns out to sell well enough and be popular enough. So could we still see this book as a movie? Yes. Is it guaranteed to become one? Absolutely not. I'll be real, I am both fascinated and so jealous. I can say it, we're allowed to say it. If you're jealous, that's okay. You know, I acknowledge it in myself. I am both fascinated by her journey and jealous of her opportunities. Like, some people get exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. She had exactly the right tropes. She happened to be on TikTok and know how to utilize it well and do exactly the perfect advertising that her book needed. Most of us don't get to do that. In the traditional publishing world, for a fiction book, you cannot query on concept alone. You must have a finished, polished manuscript to send to agents. You cannot say, hey, this is the book I want to write, or this is the book I am writing. You have to say, this is the book I have written. I have gotten it as clean as I possibly can. Many people, including myself, have hired editors before sending their book to agents. So, yeah, this book bypassed a lot of steps, and yes, I'm mad about it. All right, I'm gonna try, that's like as salty as I'm gonna be. If you are a querying author though, I do not recommend going to watch her TikTok, because all the things she's saying as like part of her sob story are just normal things that happen to most of us who are querying, and it's like, oof. One of the reasons that I was watching her TikTok is because one of the main issues that this book ran into is she promised a lot of things, like I said, picked up on concept. So she promised a lot of things. And we are going to see. Other reviewers are saying those things are not in the book. We are going to see. So I went on her TikTok and I found out the things that she promised that this book was going to be. And we are going to be looking out for these things. And I might as well just read them off now. In her TikTok like promo for it, she said the main character must lie, cheat, and betray. So we're going to be on the lookout for that. There is supposedly lots of spice in the romance. She called it the first clickbait novel. I don't know if that's actually true. I'm pretty sure that other novels have been published similarly. Like I think Piper CJ's book, which has now been picked up by a publisher, might qualify as like a quote-unquote clickbait novel. We are promised Hunger Games meets A Court of Thorns and Roses. At first I couldn't find that one. I was like, everybody keeps saying that she promised this, but I'm not seeing it on the TikTok. It turned out it was in a description of one of her TikToks. So it's a bit iffy if it's like in the description and not even in the TikTok. Did she really promise it? But I put it on here. It's supposedly diverse. It's rivals to lovers, villain gets the girl, love triangle, high stakes mystery, powers, and plot twists. Those are the things that she has promised us for this book. So will this book deliver? A lot of people are saying no. That's why we're gonna find out, because the other shoe has dropped when you have a book that is so incredibly, incredibly hyped and then you get it into the hands of people and it turns out it is average at best, potentially below average, which is why it's here on my channel. People tend to get upset because they have built it up and you have helped them build it up so highly in their heads. Now, if you made it this far, I probably should have led with this. You might be wondering, hey Julian, what's a read-along when it pertains to your channel? If you are new because you came here for Lightlark, because I'm the only reviewer putting out Lightlark stuff, the rest of the universe is over it, here on our channel, a read-along means something a little bit different than it means on most other channels. Here on this channel, I sit here and I read the book, and I tell you what's happening, and I commentate as an author and as a reader. Nigel hits me in the face with his tail. We have snacks, we have a good time. So our main goals here are both to snark and have fun and laughs, and also to see what we can learn as authors to up our skill level, so that when our books eventually all get picked up as bestsellers, they have the quality to back it up, right? Yep, that's what we're going for. I am also an author. I have some published books on the shelf behind me, you can see, and they will be linked in the doobly-doo. So if you're sitting here very salty because I am picking apart someone else's book and you want to do that to me, you can purchase one of my books. You do have to read it before you make fun of it though. I have to read this, you have to read mine. Those are the rules, I'm sorry. All right, is there anything else we needed to cover? Yes, there is. Finally, before we get down to reading the first chapter, we have Bad Book Bingo! It's back! We used Bad Book Bingo. Technically, it should just be Flawed Book Bingo, because I don't really like to just blanketly call anything bad. But Bad Book Bingo rolls off the tongue so much more nicely. We did this also in A Night and Its Moon, so if this entertains you, go check out that read-along. But I have rearranged the squares and I've added a few new squares that I came up with while we were reading A Night and Its Moon. I'm sorry that the light quality keeps changing. It's a very cloudy day outside and I'm doing my best. Let's keep going with Bad Book Bingo, okay? This is on my social media, so you can print this out at home and play along if you want to. You could even potentially download it and rearrange the squares if you wanted to play like a different version that I'm playing. But I'm just gonna read them all to you really quickly. The first square is horny, which basically applies to any world or characters whose like main attribute is that they are really horny. For example, the Savior's Champion series, where everyone is just so horny all the time, just everyone except the main characters. Or the Cyborg Tinkerer. Same vibe, except for the main characters are also horny. Main character suddenly good at a high skill activity. That's for when a main character picks up an activity that would normally take months or even years to learn, such as horseback riding, archery, swordsmanship, etc. Too Dumb to Live, that one's fairly self-explanatory. Main character behaving badly without fallout. That is in a lot of these, and I'm curious to see if it's in this one too. Baddie only wants power. That is a bad guy who wants power for undefined reasons. That is not good enough for me. Why do they want the power? What does the power give them? Let's go deeper. Confusing plot or no plot in sight, self-explanatory. Main character is the special, meaning the main character is the one person who's either prophesied to save the world or is going to save the world because they have the most powers, the most skills, are the best at everything, and have all of the abilities that anyone would ever need. We have weird metaphors and similes. That one's fairly straightforward. Info dump, another straightforward one. Awkward sex scene. Someone did ask if this meant an awkwardly written sex scene or if it meant two characters who are awkward when they're having sex, like say they're both virgins and it's awkward their first time. It's the first one. A sex scene that is supposed to be titillating, but it is written so poorly that I'm laughing instead. You might be tempted to say, Julian, you're asexual, so sex scenes are going to do it for you anyway. Listen, I've read a lot of fan fiction. Enough to know a little bit what most people are looking for in a sex scene, and when one is done well and one is done poorly. Next we have powers and abilities never explained. Characters all have the same voice. We've got the free space. Damaging sexual assault tropes, you'll know it when you see it. The badass heroine, constant damsel, where we're told over and over again how a character kicks ass, but instead she's just frequently in need of being saved. We have She Don't Know She's Beautiful. Do you think your reader is dumb, which is one we encountered a lot in A Night and Its Moon, where the author will tell the reader something that they had just learned, or could figure out themselves through context clues. Basically, it is when the author very clearly does not trust the reader at all. I Would Die For You, person I just met. This is basically the version of Insta-Love where the characters have known each other for a week, and they are already willing to literally lay down their lives for each other. Unhinged Bullies. So we've got our Jenna Moreci / Stephen King style bullies who go from 0 to homicidal in 60 seconds. We've got anachronistic language, minority only there to help straight / white main character, see also able-bodied main character, fat equals evil, terrible plans. This used to be baddies have terrible plans, but I have just changed it to terrible plans because I forgot how often the good guys have terrible plans. We have main character has last minute new powers and abilities, and finally, everyone praises the main character. That was another really bad one in A Night in Its Moon. It got so absurd. Okay, I think we've gotten through all of the preamble, and if I think of more, I will just stop reading and talk about it. We are going to remove the dust cover from this book. Interesting. Interesting. It's got a crown, like the dust cover has a heart with flowers. This one's got a crown. So, and the back says, there are lies and liars all around you. This kind of reminds me of a Jenna Moreci style book cover, which I guess she's on trend. Oh, you can barely see it, but there's like a little birdie. There's a birdie in the crown. So birdie might be, is the birdie on the... I don't think there's a birdie hiding anywhere on this cover. She also got blurbed by a lot of really popular authors who I don't think they actually read this book. Chloe Gong, Mary Lou, Adam Silvera, and Saba Tahir to blurb her book. Goddamn. Well, let's read the author bio real quick. Alex Astor is an award-winning author. It's not difficult to be an award-winning author. You just gotta find some award somewhere that you can win. And one of the most followed authors on social media. Wow, it's right there in her author bio. She graduated summa cum laude from the University of Pennsylvania, where she studied creative writing. Yes, money also helped her go to school. It's helpful to have money to go to school. And is also the author of the critically acclaimed Emblem Island series. Okay, so it is a series. And then it just tells you to go explore the world of Lightlark at astroverse.com. Let's read the blurb for the book while we're here. Oh, it says right on the inside cover that Isla Crown must lie, cheat, and betray. So we better see some lying, some cheating, and some betraying. Don't mind the background noises. Adam is moving around the house. Every 100 years, the island of Lightlark appears for only 100 days to host a deadly game, where the rulers of 6 realms fight to break their curses and win unparalleled power. Each ruler has something to hide. Each curse is uniquely wicked. To break them and save themselves and their realms, one ruler will die. To survive, Isla Crown must lie, cheat, betray, even as love complicates everything. All right. I think we have read all we need to read from that cover. Let's get in. Also, I will be pronouncing her name Isla rather than Isla because it spells Isla. If she was a real person and she came to me and said, pronounce my name Isla, I would. But she is not. She is a fictional character and her name, it's Isla. So let's look at this first line. We often look at first lines. Isla Crown often fell through puddles of stars and into faraway places, always without permission, and seemingly on the worst occasions. Okay, that is a potentially catchy first line because you're like, what the fuck does that mean? And getting a reader to ask, what the fuck does that mean, is one way to draw them into the story. Don't recommend that for everybody, but also, unless you are querying, the first line is not as important as everyone pretends it is. Yes, it's great to have a really iconic first line, but like, nobody, I don't know a single reader who would set down a book after reading only the first line. Again, we are trying to sound a little bit flowery in my opinion, like settle down. I'm sure it'll even out as the story goes on. Her breath bottled in her chest like the rare perfumes on her vanity, the glass room spinning and fractured colors bleeding together until gravity finally pinned her down like a loose thread in the universe. You sound pretentious. I'm sorry. Apparently she lives in a glass room though. Like, we can't escape these places made out of glass, and I don't understand. Also, why doesn't anybody name chapters anymore? I love chapter names. This one's just called Isla. Maybe they'll have names? I was assuming it was just because it was her point of view. Oh, okay, they will have names. Oh, good. I was just assuming because it was her point of view, but actually it's the name of the chapter. I'm so excited. So she's holding something called a star stick, which I know from spoilers will never be described. I suppose I should warn you all. I do know a lot of spoilers about this book because I was fascinated by it and I couldn't look away. A sort of slow motion car crash situation. I have seen other people's spoilery reviews of this book. Now there are definitely going to be things that I forgot because sometimes my brain just like shuts down, like the Cyborg Tinkerer. I watched a spoilery read-along of the Cyborg Tinkerer before I read the book, and I forgot most of the information as a sort of defense mechanism. So there's definitely going to be stuff that still takes me by surprise, but there is stuff that everybody talks about that I do know, such as the Star Stick, which is, I guess, a magic wand that she has. Oh, there's a train going by. Hope you don't mind the train. Choo-choo. I'm too lazy to wait for the train to finish going by, so don't mind the train noises in the background. But, so the Star Stick, never described. We know it won't be. Immediately when I heard it, this is what I pictured. But people have pictured everything from sex toys to Disney wands to bubble wands. Like, that's a serious risk you run when you never describe an item. Like, it reminds me of the Cyborg Tinkerer where Gwen's hoverboard was never described, and so it was kind of able to do like random things, and I was never sure what I was supposed to be picturing, how many people it could hold, how big it was, whether it had a sail or not. I recommend if there's like a major item that your character is going to be using fairly often, that you describe it, even if it seems so obvious to you what it should look like. Like, I'm sure when Alex Astor wrote this, she was like, Star Stick, yes, completely, no one will question like what this looks like. I don't need to describe it. She was wrong. But apparently I'm picturing something like wand-like because she sticks it down the back of her dress, reminiscent of Wonder Woman sticking that sword down the back of her dress. Just in time for someone named Poppy and someone named Tara to come crashing into the room and be very upset that her hair is messed up. And also, Tara is wearing a lot of swords and knives. So many, she's wearing so many swords and knives at her waist that they're like clanking and clinking, and I'm just picturing her wearing a skirt made out of weapons. So she's got this really handy teleportation device. We're getting that out of the way right away. At first she couldn't control it, now she can use it to return to places she's already been, but she doesn't really understand it, and I don't think we're probably ever going to get any understanding of it. The author's just like, I have this MacGuffin item, I'm going to tell you that it's there immediately, so you get used to it, which is smart, and don't ask questions, it's just a useful MacGuffin item. Weird, I don't really understand the Star Stick, necessarily. Like, authorially, why did you give her a magic teleportation stick? I don't know what Tara expected to see, but apparently she was like reaching for a sword when she heard the other person yell about how Isla's hair is messed up, and I'm like, when she heard, what happened to your hair? Did she think a dragon is attacking? Like, what was she gonna do with a sword about that situation? So we learn that Tara and Poppy are her charm teacher and her weapons teacher. Poppy is charm, Tara is weapons, I think. I also know, again, already through spoilers, that Isla is like very skilled. We have a kind of situation, we talked about it in A Night in Its Moon, where we had the training montage, how you have a couple of choices if you want your character to be really, really kick-ass. One of them is to have the training montage, another one is to have the whole book be about their growth, and the final one that I don't remember if we talked about is to just reassure the reader that, yes, the character totally had a training montage a while ago, and so just trust us that she has all of these skills, and that is the type of book that we are in for here. This might be my least favorite because then the author can say whatever they want about the character's skills and you can't prove otherwise because you weren't there for that training thing that happened before the book started. Okay, apparently she lives in a fucking snow globe. That seems like it would get really hot in the summertime. We're really hitting the bird imagery hard, as you recall. There's a little bird right there. Possibly that relates to the Hunger Games, but we have them call her a little bird, and then she thinks of herself as a bird in a cage right afterwards. Isla had been locked inside not just for her own safety, but for everyone else's. I'm curious to know how it's for everyone else's safety.
Get used to disappointment.
So not only do we have the fighting teacher who later will allow the main character to do whatever fighting that she needs to. Trust us, she just had that training. We also have her charm teacher, so that later if Isla needs to know how to do anything charming or ladylike, she will also have had that training. Don't ask questions. We're also getting little hints, little tastes of some world building. I suspect we may be headed towards an info dump, but right now she is definitely leading us on with like little hints. Like, we get our first mention of the Centennial, but it doesn't get explained yet. We get our mention of other realms' horrible views of us, so we are getting hints about the world building, which I actually like. I do like feeding things in slowly through character interaction versus just dumping it. Now, I imagine we will need some info dumping later to understand what these things are, but I'm not hating the fact that they are just kind of being sprinkled in. So we get a little bit more of a hint and a chance to be very overdramatic. The Centennial was many things. A game, a chance at breaking the many curses that plagued the 6 realms, an opportunity to win unmatched power, a meeting of the 6 rulers, 100 days on an island cursed only to appear once every 100 years, and for Isla, almost certain death.
Certain death!
So when she was younger, she used to sneak out of her snow globe to talk to someone who used to live on the island of Lightlark, and he told her about, he or she, what gender are we dealing with here? She told Isla all about fun magical things before the curses. That means this person must be pretty old. That or she's just passing on stories. I know a lot of these characters are the sort of magically thousands of years old or whatever. One thing I am kind of disappointed by is when I first heard the premise for this book, I don't know why, but I thought floating island. I immediately thought that Lightlark was going to be a floating island that only appeared every 100 years. But it's just a regular island surrounded by impassable storms, and you can only get there every 100 years or whatever. And that's a little disappointing. Like, I have no idea where I got the floating island idea. I was never promised a floating island, but wouldn't that have been cooler and magical? Like, floating island, woo! Hovering in the sky.
A floating island.
An island that floats in the sky?
Yep. Most people think it's just a legend, but my dad actually saw it.
Okay, yeah, I guess she was over 500, and Isla calls her an elderess. I think female elders are just called elders still. Isla also feels that it was her fault that this elderess died. Well, I don't think we're gonna get She Don't Know She's Beautiful, because we're getting a lot of stuff right away in this first chapter, and it's not delivered in the least palatable way, so at least there's that. But we're finding out that Isla is a wildling, and that wildlings are always beautiful. So I don't think we're going to get She Don't Know She's Beautiful, because much like the characters in A Night in Its Moon, she do know. Uh-oh, we're already verging on everybody praises the main character. We'll see if it continues, but you are enough, little bird, better than any of them. Also, Isla thinks that the curse is responsible for her mother's death. We may have a plan going on. Each ruler arrived at the Centennial with a plan. Tara and Poppy had hammered theirs into Isla since she was a child. Well, at least they have one, unlike the characters in A Night in Its Moon. Then they say, you are our only hope, and I don't know if she teleports away. I don't know what happens. So we get a little bit of a break. The wildlings live in a very sort of elvish, nature-y scenario where everything is like trees and vines. She's wearing a dress that clings to her ribs, waist, knees, and then pools at her feet. So like a mermaid cut? That seems awkward, but it's okay. We're gonna get a little history here. Let's see if it's enough to be an info dump, because not every bit of information that we get in a book constitutes an info dump. An info dump, to me anyway, is where we get information delivered that could have been delivered better some other way, and also there is way too much of it all in a big old chunk, sometimes taking up multiple paragraphs, multiple pages. That's an info dump, to me anyway. We find out the realms, and I've been waiting for this. The realms are the wildling, starling, moonling, skyling, sunling, and Nightshade.
Obvious exits are north, south, and Dennis.
I am 1,000% certain that she wanted Darkling to be one of them, but she was told that she couldn't have that because the Darkling was already a thing in a different book. And so she just, rather than come up with a different ling, she just said, Nightshade. Sure, fuck it.
Didn't even try, made lots of money. Didn't even try, made lots of money.
But also, the names of these realms is the first thing, besides maybe the star stick, that makes this book feel a little bit juvenile. I'm kind of thinking that although this is a young adult book, this author started out writing middle grade, and I'm wondering if it's going to start to show. And to me, the names of the realms is one of the ways that this definitely feels like a middle grade author writing this book. It's very My Little Pony vibes to me. Well, here's one of the things that I wanted to maybe think about as I got to know them better. The curses were their strengths turned into personal poisons. Each curse was uniquely wicked. So I, as a reader, am going to be expecting that whatever powers these lands had, the curse is going to be like either the opposite or something that like ruins their powers, like the powers of their lands. And we'll see if that's actually true. Because I know already from spoilers that each of these lands has special powers, but like I don't have them memorized or anything, so we'll find out what they are and we'll find out what the curses are and see how we feel they go together. The wildlings have two curses, which are to kill anyone they fell in love with and to live exclusively on human hearts. So this tells me that they are not human, so there are humans somewhere in this world, but not necessarily here? I'm not 100% sure. Are wildlings considered humans? Can they eat each other's hearts? I feel like since it specifically said human hearts versus like each other's hearts or people's hearts, the humans are separate, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But the other thing, to kill anyone that they love. I think it is romantic love specifically. Curse anyone they fell in love with. So I think it is romantic love. And that turned them into beautiful, terrifying monsters with a wicked power to seduce with a single look. Are we gonna have to put horny on the bingo card right away because we have another Nox situation on our hands? Love became forbidden. Fewer children were born and daughters had always been more common in the realm. Men were more likely to die from the curse for some reason. Men were killed more often when the rules were broken. What does that mean? Does that mean that they were more likely to succumb to the curse, or does that mean if they were caught falling in love or having children, they were killed as punishment because having children was outlawed, but then why wouldn't the women be killed? Because the women, the babies come out of the... I mean, fair, I guess men have to contribute to the babies, and I guess you probably want the mothers alive to keep the babies alive, but it's a little odd, but whatever. But since all of the men were killed, we have a Themyscira situation where they're mostly now just like nature-loving warrior women. But one thing's for sure, Isla is their only hope, oh boy. All of the wildlings apparently also have Isabella's powers from Encanto. Because they're just spilling flowers and blooms and everything all over. It doesn't seem like they're too lacking in power right now, but apparently, okay. Apparently it is magical powers that are weakened because they used to be able to grow fucking mountains with a flick of their wrist. Which seems like it would do bad things to the ecosystem, but I guess when you have full control over that ecosystem, maybe it doesn't matter. There are hundreds of cheering wildlings here to see Isla off. Now here's a cool aspect that I don't think is going to be used, but I personally would have loved to see more. Because wildlings are completely in tune with nature, they have animal companions, and we find out that Tara has a panther named Shadow, very creative. And Poppy has a little hummingbird that can hide in her hair. And I'm like, perfect opportunity for an adorable animal companion for a main character. But I haven't heard anybody talk about animal companions in their reviews, so I think we're just gonna hear about people having cool animal companions and then not actually get one.
Disappointed!
So we learned that there have been 4 centennials already, all of them failures to break the curses. Are there other rulers who used to exist whose lands have died? I'd be really interested to find that out. Like, what other lands maybe existed, and then their rulers died during the centennial, so they're just gone now.
Get used to disappointment.
Also, Isla was, like, imprisoned in her snow globe, just, like, learning and training and becoming the best, no doubt, like no one ever was. But the people are very into her. They're like, yes, you're gonna win, go, 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 even though I kind of got the impression that they never got to see her or know her or really have any reason to necessarily think that she was the one to break the spell. If I was the people, I would be angry that the person we were sending to do this very important task was, like, never seen by anybody except for her 2 teachers. Also, some of these people are just here naked, naked with weapons, and all I can think about is the Flappy Boys from the previous book, because their clothing was never described, so I was picturing them naked with weapons. So as Isla is leaving, she's thinking about how she promised her guardians that she would follow their orders. Her last words to her guardians fresh in her mind: I will follow your orders. And she wished they hadn't been a lie. So there is a plan, but Isla does not intend to follow it. Does she have her own plan? We will have to find out in the coming chapters. The next chapter is called The Island. Yeah, nice short chapters, nice manageable chapters. And I think I'll be done reading for today, just because my throat's getting a little dry from all this talking, but I wanted to get us started at least. I have a lot of world building questions. I have a lot of things. The unfortunate thing about having this spoiled is I'm, like, eager to see how a lot of the things I've heard about actually play out in this book. And if they play out at all. As far as first chapters go, not the worst. A little bit rushed feeling, but it is young adult, and in young adult, you do have to basically kick your main character out the front door and be like, get to that inciting incident right this minute, young lady. We don't have time for preamble like cool animal companions. Go on, get. Nigel has completely flopped out on my lap. You can't see him, but he has just gone full bleh. And I'm unfortunately going to have to disturb him, but have you heard anything about Lightlark? Have you been following it? Do you know the spoilers as well? Or are you going into this completely blind? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you for the next chapter, shall I?
It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, patrons. Patrons like Jessica, Caitlin, KJ, LaFone, Amanda, Unicorn Jenny, Celia, Neon, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Hidden Glade, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Just coming in to welcome new patron Caitlin. I did ask if she had anything that she wanted me to highlight. Blogs, vlogs, channels, books, etc. And she didn't have anything. She just wanted me to say hi. So, hi, Caitlin.
Ye find yourself in yon dungeon. Ye see a flask. Obvious exits are north, south, and Dennis. And you be all like, get ye flask. And it'd say, you can't get ye flask. And you just have to sit there and imagine why on earth you can't get ye flask.